Hey all, this is 012 Boku and...
King of the Jackasses, Jarek.
And yep, Jared the Jackass coming at you with another review in our new style that we're doing it now. And granted, I know we said we'd do something like this, but we could still take it further in this in the future. But basically today, we're going to give you our thoughts on Captain Ron. You guys probably saw my short review, and I do mean short review, since it was a comedy, like I said, Jarek, I just did a straightforward thing on it, only 7 minutes long, believe it or not, but, the short review on Captain Ron, so I figured today, starting off with you, Jarek, we talk about what you liked about Captain Ron. So?
It's actually a pretty interesting comedy, and seriously, how many comedies does Kurt Russell get to be in these days, Plus, I remember making the joke when I saw it's like, the eye patch. I see Solid Snake has got a new job. And also, Snake Plissken, because, of course, Snake is based off Snake Plissken, but it's just kind of weird, And also, it's kind of a bit of an odd history piece in a sense, because if any of you are old enough to remember the early 90s, there was a lot of piracy going on in the Caribbean waters, and this really demonstrates why white people kind of need to research where you're taking your vacation. But there's a lot of very interesting reasons why I love this movie. Like, we actually get to see a nice, clean, quiet Chicago in this movie. We also get to see the fashion of that time and the cars. Like, I had forgotten how much I missed those nice long coat felt coats men used to wear. Or those nice, trim business suits ladies used to wear. Seriously. There's a bit of a reason why the Helltaker developer has a fetish for that, by the way. Yeah, he made the game because he has a fetish for women in business suits. But it's, there's a lot of just interesting things you see in this movie. Also, I just love how much it highlights the behaviors of people, like, in that part of the world. It's like, you would think if you see like a bunch of gun-toting gorillas chasing a pack of tourists in an automobile that you would be calling the cops or nothing, not going like, no, they would do that. They would totally fucking do that. It's like, hey, look at the gringos being chased by the Costa Nostra. It's like, just another Tuesday. I mean, I'm not even joking. This is literally a thing, and I love how even Kurt Russell's character Captain Ron points out it's like, yeah, we're a bunch of, don't worry about it. It's like these guys are drunken, stupid, and disorganized. It's the Coast Guard you got to worry about. And he's kind of right about that, too, by the way. And, I mean, it's just such an interesting comedy of errors in a lot of ways. Really highlights a lot of interesting aspects of, like, the differences in culture, especially his daughter. Like, dear God, never take your daughter to the Caribbean. If you got a pretty little white girl, don't take her anywhere near Mexico or South America. Just saying. Seriously, the fact that she got a tramp stamp at that age. I love that scene too. It's like, where did you get that tattoo, young man? Oh, don't worry, that one washes off with water. It's like, and my daughter's does. No, that's the primo deal right there. It's really just one of the most interesting, funny little movies I've seen. Like, I love it. Plus, at the end, Captain Ron wearing the Don Johnson Miami Vice suit with the shades. It's a really sweet 80s movie, but it kind of highlights why you really need to pay attention when you're going down to that part of the country.
Yeah. Well, as I will talk about what I liked, 92, remember, actually, it's got a lot of 80s things in it, but it was made in 92, which again, it looks and feels like an 80s movie, but made in 1992, which still shocks me. And yeah, he was doing it again at the end of the film with another, I mean, it wasn't a family this time, but it was a couple, and yeah, their little speedboat is a big fucking tanker or whatever that is coming towards them and not stopping. Oh, they'll get out of our way.
Yeah, and I mean, plus I love how throughout the movie he's telling us like, don't worry, they'll move. Don't trust me. I used to sail on the Saratoga. Yeah, if you know anything about the Saratoga, that's not exactly a glowing endorsement, Saratoga took a wee bit of damage in WW2.
Good old Sarah. But I mean, yeah, it's like all those films. And what I liked is, the comedy of errors and the comedy between Captain Ron and Martin Harvey. I mean, it was really good. And again, it juxtaposes with the moral messages about the family bonding and them coming to trust Captain Ron really well, and probably one of my favorite scenes. I mean, there's a few, but the one I like the most that Jarek probably remembers because I laughed out loud at that is when they're caught in the squall, or you could possibly even say hurricane. Like, they're all below, and then Captain Ron's like, don't think you should be down here if it breaks apart, and then they're up top, and then it's like, we're lost. How are we gonna get there? We got our map. Where's the map? Oh, I got it. And then, hits Martin Harvey in the face and it flies off. No. It's okay. As long as we have our trusty compass. And meanwhile, I didn't mention this in the short review, their compass kept falling off, so they had it duct taped to the top of the mast. And then Martin Harvey's like, as long as we have our trusty compass. It slides right off the boat.
I'll admit, one thing I love, though, is because Captain Ron's, reliability kind of fluctuates quite a bit throughout the movie, they actually do wind up, stepping up and really getting their sea legs by the end of the film. It's actually kind of impressive, really. But, I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff, like, after they have to agree to ferry the pirates. Yeah, I love how he tells them, Pirates of the Caribbean. There are no Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like, oh, they are. They just have AK-47s and MAC-10s now. But yeah, after they have to, take them on the ship, the ladies decide to air out their under thingies on deck. And I just gotta say, Mrs. Martin, you got distinguishingly good taste in Fredericks of Hollywood, let's just say. Girl must have some kinks because she likes the black lacy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and...
But there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie, like seeing those old Cuban cars. I love those, by the way. Those South American Cuban cars with the nice fins on the taillights. Oh, I miss those. I think my grandpa actually used to own one. But yeah, there's and you get to see Caribbean Mardi Gras, which is the worst place to lose your kids, by the way. That almost happened to them. I love how they also, it's like, oh, good news, Mr. and Mrs. Martin. I'm from the American consulate. The good news is we're not going to charge you with sedition against the United States. Oh, that's great. The bad news is we're going to have to expedite you immediately. What about our kids?
Yep.
Never change, State Department.
Well, and that's just how it goes. And yeah, like the family just dealing with all that is great. And yeah, fighting against the drug cartels / pirates who, like I said, it was possibly Rocco from the beginning of the movie. That was a cool little scene. And then her with the flare gun. What did you pack in this thing? As it hits the boat and literally slows them down as they're chasing them. That's great. But what I also liked was that gorilla scene where they run into the gorillas. He's like, there are no gorillas in, the Caribbean. They're not here. That's a subcontinent of Africa. And then, he goes off the path and then all of a sudden, guns. And it's like, and then it's like, I told you there were gorillas. You did not say go. It's go. Go. And there's no pirates in the Caribbean. Well, it's just great banter throughout the film.
I also love when they get lost and they have to... They get their boat stolen. They have to make their way on a little life raft. I love how when they land, they're like, "Oh, it's okay. We're on land. There's signs of civilization. We'll be fine." And he sees a sign. He's like, "Oh dear God, we have to go back now. Why?" It's like holds up his hand up to the sign. Cuba? What's wrong with Cuba? And I'm thinking to myself, woman, you have to be old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. You know why this is bad. I mean, never mind the fact they're lucky they didn't step on some leftover landmines or some shit, because, let's be honest, there's probably more than a little bit of our military hardware left over in Cuba to this day. Mm-hmm. Tends to happen when you have one too many military exercises go south in Cuba. Hello, Bay of Pigs. But there's a lot of fun scenes, like, again, going back to that guy, the company they want to get the boat appraised by didn't have anybody they could spare, so it's like just find a local in what was the town?
San Pierre Patame, but it's like Saint Potato in English.
Yeah, it's like in San Pierre Patame. So they get Captain Ron, who shows up in this junker of a little yellow box car. And I love how one of the running gags they have is everybody keeps forgetting to initiate the parking brake. So the thing like lazily drifts off the pier into the water. And you notice he's really nervous about that. It's like, shouldn't we get some supplies before we leave? No, it's okay. We'll get some on the next island. And then, of course, the real owner of the car he borrowed shows up. And later on, you find out that nice little dark-skinned island girl he was partying with, yeah, she was working for that dude. He wants his money.
Mm-hmm. And he took theirs instead. And I mean, yeah, and even at the end, the family, with all they learned, decided not to get the boat appraised and take the money. And the reason Donaldson, the guy who they were meeting, gave him Captain Ron is because Martin Harvey admitted the boat was a piece of crap at the time. And then he's like, well, I'm not sending a big guy for it. Just get him someone local. And his secretary's like, someone local? And he's like, yeah. And he just throws the file away. And, they're just saying they're going to junk the boat. And by the end, the boat looks real nice and good. And after they let Captain Ron off American shores, they're about to, go into the Miami port and meet the guy. But then they turn the boat around and go back on an adventure, seemingly, not to go back to regular life. So, sort of bit of nice ending. You never know how they're going to make it without certain essentials or getting things taken care of first. But hey, that's the fun about a movie. You don't need to know any of that.
Speaking of the boat, I love the fact that, this was an inheritance from his grandpa. It's like, uncle. And he's like, oh yeah, he bought it from the Clark Gable estate. He's got like this nice photo of like a nice, good New England clipper ship. And then you see the thing, and it looks like something that was taken from a leftover Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney.
Yep.
Not a bad boat, but clearly not the best. But it's kind of funny because again, this kind of goes to how, and this happens both in white, Hispanic, probably even African American families, where it's like, oh yeah, I got my scar getting bayoneted in the war. It's like, nah, that was actually from a hernia repair surgery. It's like, oh, it's a nice big New England clipper boat. Nah, it's kind of a junker touristy boat. But like you said, after all the crap they had to put up with Captain Ron, they actually did fix it up pretty nice.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, he taught them how to sail because they knew where to go, how to put the sails down and work together as a family. So they did have that great bonding experience, which makes the moral all the better good, which I guess is a great segue into our next part, the favorite characters, as we always do. Now, granted, I'll give you the rest of it, because this had a lot of characters in it, but they were mostly supporting cast. The main characters, basically, Kurt Russell, Captain Ron, Martin Short, Martin Harvey, Mary Kay Place, Catherine Harvey, Benjamin Salisbury, Benjamin Harvey, Meadow Sisto, the daughter Jarek was talking about, Caroline Harvey, and that's pretty much all there really is. And so I basically would like to say everybody they got in this movie was good. I mean, everybody did their parts well. The family was great. Captain Ron was great. But I have to say, for me, hands down, I have to give it to Kurt Russell and Martin Short. When my friend Simon E. Thunder Darkstone first told me about this movie, I didn't know how well it was going to work, but they had great chemistry together, did everything well together. The comedy was on point. The errors of the comedy were on point. Whether that was just through script writing or if any of that was ad-libbed, it was great stuff between them both. So I got to give it off to Martin Short and Kurt Russell, two great actors to have in this movie that really made it worth the while and the gags and the laughs. How about you, Jarek?
Well, I mean, of course Solid Snake is going to steal the spotlight on this one. I mean, what else is he going to do? He's Kurt Russell, bitch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, he's the driver of the Pork Chop Express. You don't mess with Kurt Russell. Martin Short is golden as always, and
yeah.
You'll probably recognize the little boy in this movie because he was in a lot of 80s family movies at the time.
Well, so was, what's her name, Meadow Sistro. I I know I've seen Meadow Sister and other things, but I always keep wanting to say, what's the other big late 80s, 90s actress who basically continued on in the software? Oh, Shawnee Smith, who, if you guys didn't know her from any of her 80s or 90s stuff, which I definitely did it, and then you go back and see some of her stuff, and you're like, wow, you can't believe that's her. But basically, Amanda from the Saw franchise, if you guys know the thriller / horror movie, that's who Shawnee Smith is. But Meadow Sister is a different actress. I don't think that is. Well, yeah, it isn't Shawnee Smith. Otherwise, it would say Meadow Sister, but a.k.a. Shawnee Smith on the credits, like as they usually do. But no, everybody was good at this. But those two, were golden. And, my final thoughts is Simon E. Thunder Darkstone said this was another comedy that was a gem that flew under the radar. It was, because I had no idea this existed. No idea how this came to be, but it was a fun, really good movie. Again, you feel like this is 1980s, but it's 1992 when this was made, so really good stuff. I mean, granted, it's it's 31 years old now, and I mean, you can tell because everybody looks so young in this dang movie, so Martin Short and Kurt Russell don't look like this anymore.
And I love how they kept a couple of like the sound gaffes from the original movie in the DVD version.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a nice little touch, gives it that vintage feel for us old-timey folk.
Yeah, and exactly. And I'll say for a DVD, they remastered this on the screen pretty well because it wasn't too, cruddy. And it's not a wide... And if you have the right specifications of the widescreen, because I got a widescreen version, which my friend Simon E. Thunder Darkstone only had, I think, a full-screen version, I think, possibly. But, it fit into my screen on the TV pretty dang well, so I was actually cool about this, and it looked pretty dang good for DVD style, so again, they did the remaster on this pretty well, but, all in all, a very good, and I'll say underrated, comedy. Any other thoughts you want to add, Jared?
And, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the soundtrack, because, 80s movies have great soundtracks. This one's got a lovely, nice little Caribbean soundtrack, including some choice pieces from Bob Marley and the Wailers. So,
yep.
Get your pina colada, get yourself down to Margaritaville, and have a little fun with Captain Ron.
Oh, absolutely. And, what do you guys think? Like I said yesterday, since that's when I did the last review, I'm glad I had time to fit these in sort of back-to-back for once. But what do you guys think? Have you guys seen Captain Ron? Is this something you would want to check out? Because, again, it is actually a pretty good comedic movie. But, just let me know down in the comments below and just let us know what you think. Until then, this has been the review, and this is All One Two Boku and...
Snake!
Do-do-do! We'll see you guys later, all right? Deuces.